So good morning and welcome everyone to another edition of the Edge Live webinar. I'll be your host for today, and my name is Abiola Awujobi. If this is your first time of joining us, you're very much welcome. The Edge Live webinar is an interactive session for entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, managers, people in the job market, HR professionals, what have you. So if you're talking about business and talking about people, then you're in the right place. So you're very much welcome to another edition of the Edge Live webinar. This month's edition promises to be interesting as usual. And this program is brought to you by Bizedgeapp, an all-in-one business management tool with a suite of apps for growing your business. So what are we going to be talking about today? We'll be talking about talent mismatch. And why is this topic very, very important? Well, from employees who are too qualified or underqualified for their roles, to people working in industries that don't align with their qualifications, we're experiencing a severe skill or let's say talent mismatch in today's market. And with generationally diverse workforce, with various varied levels of education and candidates from different backgrounds, people are inevitably filling roles that don't align with their expertise. And this is creating a gap that businesses are trying to fill for many reasons, from maybe missing out crucial criteria in your job ad, or misinterpreting someone's qualification, or the competency of an employee fading over time. This skill or talent mismatch is proving extremely costly for organizations. And there's a greater need to assess the candidate skills accurately. So what can we do? What can you do to avoid this in your business? How do you navigate the job market successfully? And we'll be looking at the angle of the employer and the employee as regards solving talent mismatch in 2023. So we have a professional in the house that will be doing justice to this topic and be discussing with us. But before we go on to introduce her, just some housekeeping rules. This program is conversational. That is, you have the time to ask questions and also air some of your views if you would like to do so. But if you want to do any of that, you have questions, please put them in the chat box. So when it's time for Q&A, we read out these questions and get them answered. So we want to pay attention now to the professional who will be discussing with us, and that's the person of Omozino Eguh. She is a tech entrepreneur, a teacher, and a human capital innovator. She's the co-founder and director of product for innovation at Udemy. So please, let's welcome Omozino to the program. Omozino, you are very much welcome. You can go ahead to unmute your mic. Omozino, I can't hear you. Your mic is muted.
Okay, fantastic. So can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. So you're welcome to today's edition of the Edge Live. How is it
Thank you so
how
much.
is it at your end? The weather and all.
Yeah, so it's a bit cold. I mean, so I'm all wrapped up this morning because it's cold.
Well, it's even in my voice,
Yeah.
but yeah.
But I think we're all good. It's a good Saturday morning. Where it's a lot quiet, but yes, we're ready to get into it.
Thank you very much. Before you get into your presentation, I just want to ask this question first. Tell us a bit about Udemy or Udemy.
Oh, okay. A bit about Udemy. I mean, so it's already part of my presentation, so I might just, get into
Okay,
it. So hi
okay,
everyone.
great.
Hi everyone. My name is Omozino. Most people call me Oz, right? So it's not so far from each other. But my name is Omozino. I'm a human capital innovator, and really, what that means for me is that I am consistently thinking about the most productive ways to improve talent performance, right? Using objective means, so objective data, insights, analytics, assessments, right? And so that's what I mean, for a good decade, right, I've spent my time thinking about how to optimize talent potential across various industries and verticals, from small businesses to startups to um, large corporates, right, to growing businesses, from schools to government. And I'm so excited to be here this morning to share the knowledge that I have, right, on this very interesting topic called talent mismatch. Now, so that's about me, right? So I'm not the focus of this conversation. A bit about Udemy, right? So Udemy is a talent analytics HR tech startup that is helping and enabling organizations make data-driven decisions, right, when it comes to talent issues. So when it comes to hiring, how we're looking at how do we minimize your hiring risk or talent risk, right, with objective talent assessments and insights and people analytics. We're looking at how do we help you reduce errors when it comes to promoting and firing the right people or retaining the right people within the right roles in your organizational life cycle, right? We're looking at that, and we're using it, helping you see how to use all of these insights to optimize productivity. Because when it comes to people, or when it comes to human capital, right, it's not like finance or money where you're seeing, oh, the numbers are right. There are a lot of intangibles, there are a lot of things that you can't see, there are a lot of things that you can't quantify, right? That really affect your ability to make sound decisions. And so what Udemy has done over time, right, we have, through a process of research and development, through a process of iteration, through a process of um, deep dive into human behavior, we're now creating tools and insights that can be plugged into HRS systems, third-party applications, plugged into businesses directly, that will help them make sense of their data and also help them make informed decisions so that they're hiring the right people in the right roles, they're retaining the right people in the right roles, you're assigning the right learning and development resources, right, per time to what your employee actually needs versus what you think they need, right? And it just helps to build a very productive and more aligned workforce. And that's what Udemy is about in a nutshell. So to get into today's conversation, right, I really want us, I want us now, I'm very interactive, and I hope that we'll have an interactive session um, for the 20-30 minutes that we're together as well. Now, on my screen, right, if you can see my screen, you can see a microphone there. Which of the following is the most productive use of this microphone? Which of the following is the most productive use of this microphone? So I have options here. I have singing and speaking, drumming and, or sitting. Given that people can decide to use this tool for a plethora of things, but which is the most productive use of that microphone? You can drop in the chat section as well. I'll be looking at it. Can anyone? I'm not able to. There's something obstructing my screen. I don't know if it can be removed. There's a poll on my screen.
Okay, yeah,
I
you
didn't
can
know.
minimize the poll.
Okay. Mm, Okay.
Have you been able to get it out of yours from your view?
No.
Okay, maybe I just
So it's obstructing my ability to see the charts. Let me see if I can see different parts of the charts.
okay, if you can stop the poll. I think it's been stopped here already.
Okay.
But we have answers in the chat. We have singing.
Okay. I've been able to minimize.
Okay,
I've been able
great.
to minimize. Okay, so singing, right? So if I mean the options they are very direct and obvious, right? That the most productive use of the microphone is singing or speaking, right? To project sound and volume. Doesn't mean that drumming, you know, can someone use the microphone to drum so that they're echoing the sound faster? But would it be melodious sound? No, it wouldn't. Can the weight of a microphone carry a human being or even your pet to sit down? It can't, right? So the same way with that everything has an intention, right? There's every person, every individual, every talent that you bring within your organization, right, has the most productive area of work. They have the aspect of work where they function to their optimal capacity. They have the area of work where they function to their best. They do their very best, right? And that's the reality. So let's look at another option. So on the screen, right, I have a couple of shapes. So I have the big shape here and I have smaller shapes. Now the question is, which of these three shapes, right, would fit into the larger shape without much effort, without taking a lot of effort or spending a lot of time? If there's a clause, so if each of these shapes were expanded, because I'm sure some people like, everything can enter. No, 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 no. Let me backtrack. If each of these shapes were expanded to be about the size or the radius or circumference of this larger circle, which of the shapes would take lesser time and lesser effort to fit? Okay, one response. I won't echo it yet. I want other people to speak. Are we together? Are we together? Okay. So I mean it's another very pretty obvious answer. The circle. The circle would, if it's expanded, it would take lesser time and lesser effort, right? Lesser resources to fit if it's expanded, right? Than the square or the triangle. Now, this seems like very obvious. I mean, you're looking at my activity, you're like, these are obvious answers. But when it really comes down to operationalizing these things within our businesses or within the teams that we lead, you'll find out that what is usually obvious is never really obvious. And that's one of the things we're going to be looking at today. What's usually obvious never really comes across obvious at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to talent mismatch, right? You can the truth is the truth of the matter is that time and effort, right? When it's misappropriated or misaligned, it would always lead to talent mismatch. When you find out that you're spending considerable time and effort, right, to get somebody to achieve a set of activity, right? Um, quicker than another person, then a mismatch is already happening. And so a lot of times in our organizations, what's really happening is that we are taking each talent. So you see the imagery there. You're taking a talent, you're taking the hammer, which sometimes can be training and development, which sometimes can be KPIs, overstretched KPIs that obviously that talent cannot achieve, which sometimes is also micromanagement, which sometimes is also transferring them to a different department in the hopes that they would do something, something would change. And we're constantly hammering and hammering and hammering. And when we see the hammering is not making sense, we then throw aside. We hammer, 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 we throw aside, right? And that's what's leading to wastes. Or it could even be a case where you were trying to hammer a talent who has overgrown or outgrown that role, right? And the person is not mentally, the person is not present on the job anymore. And we're hammering and hammering and hammering, right? And we're discarding and throwing away talent, which is an asset. And it doesn't occur to us that, okay, if this person isn't a good fit here, where is this person the most fit? Remember, we said that at the beginning, during the intro, it was being established that, talent mismatch costs a lot of money, right? Hiring talent costs money. Retaining talent, hiring talent and having that talent churn cost money to rehire. So all of that waste is going on, is costing you more, right? When you're trying to drill a talent into the role or a system that does not fit what you're trying to achieve. Now, if we succeed, right? Say, oh, you know what? We've drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled, and we are achieving some level of success with our drilling, and it's making sense, right? What's really happening, right, is that we're cutting, but we are wasting. Imagine the amount of resource that you would use to expand to drill that peg into that round hole. And you can see the chippings on the side, and you see that there's a lot of waste, right? So you keep trying and trying. There's time and effort that is being expended consistently. I mean, I'm all for iteration, but iteration without objective insight or objective data is also a waste. And so most of our organizations, the organizations that we represent or the organizations that we own, what we're trying to do when it comes to capacity development or people management is that we're drilling, and there's a lot of waste, right? So by the time you have drilled this person into the hole, you see that it's not even quite the fit, right? That means that at best you can maybe get maybe an extra 10% or 20% productive use of that person. That person cannot operate at 100% or even a 60 or 70% capacity because they're not a good fit. They're just struggling, they're just managing, right? And what happens when you have a talent that is operating at, say, a 50% capacity or a 40% capacity is that they are not mentally present, and then the mental demand that you require from that role for the execution of that role, they don't carry that mental ownership. And when there's no mental ownership, it cannot translate to effective productivity, because some tasks really do need mental attention. And I believe that none of us here are here because of the people on our team or the people in our organization are doing lift paper from point A to point B, right? We're here because the people that are within our teams and we have to lead are doing we expect them to do real creative, critical, analytical, real intense work that requires, higher outputs. And that's why we are here. And so the thing with mismatch is that if you're finding a person that by default, they don't have the mental or attitudinal recourse to expand and grow in that role sufficiently, right? To expand their capacity in such a way that whatever comes, they're able to absorb it and they're able to create more and more value out of it, right? You would be, no matter the trainings you do, no matter the improvement plans you place them on, no matter what, you will just be trying to hammer someone that is a misfit into a role, and it's just going to cost you more time, more money, more effort. In fact, aside the time and the money, is the mental stress that it gives you as the owner of the business and also as the leader of the team. The mental stress. The mental stress is because it's almost like if your team isn't taking ownership, that means that the burden of execution then falls on you. You have to think it through. You have to, you have to outline the strategy. You have to lead them. But when there is mental ownership, by default, nobody's waiting for anybody to be told what to do. People already own the process, they own the experience, they execute as is required. And so that's a different type of flow and feeling versus the first. So let's continue. Um, Now let's look at some of the ways talent mismatch hampers team productivity in a quick view. Now starts with hiring the wrong talent. Now, really, before underperformance starts to happen within a team, or within an organization, or sometimes, there are a lot of things that go into underperformance, right? That is not just even the talent alone. It can also be the organizational structure, the leadership, and the people culture. All of those things have an input, right? But in the first place, for a mismatch to happen means that hiring must have been done. So when hiring has been done, and if the hire that came in is the wrong talent, then that's the beginning of problem. That's the beginning of a lot of wahala. And but the thing about hiring in this century, particularly in this decade and in this time, is that all of the tools that exist for hiring, right? The CVs we look at, maybe you do first stage interview, second stage interview, all of those very interesting stuff don't even really quantify anymore the if how effective a talent is likely to be on a role. They don't do enough predictive work on showing, okay, how likely is this person to perform on this role, or how likely or how good enough does this person have a good sense of what is the requirement for execution on this role. So the tools that we have for judging and establishing competencies are very weak. So we live in now, we have LinkedIn, everybody's well packaged, right? And you know that well packaged LinkedIn doesn't always translate to ability to produce result. That's one. Two, we also know that a person's CV says very little. It only describes the history of what they've done, but it does not tell you enough how they're able to function within your context, within your culture, within your organization. All you can then do within interview circles is to say, okay, how much, you know, how much do you know? How much can you, okay, are we comfortable enough to give this person a try, right? I say maybe they get onboarded and month one is great, month two is maybe great. Then by month three, yes, time you're now like, what's happening? Something is wrong, something. And there's some cases where from the first week, you just know this person is just off, like there's nothing that we can, like we've made a mistake, we have to start this process again. But now this person is inside, so we have to find a way to exit the person. It's just a lot of unproductive time. So hiring the wrong talent is one of the ways that mismatch easily happens. And when it comes to today's talent, and it also comes to today's business, again, and getting people to join your organization within your role, is really a case of quantifying the intangible elements, and I will explain what that means in a few minutes, and I'll build up the knowledge to that. Another thing that some of the ways that we see talent mismatch play out in organizations is misaligned training and development. I mean, I have the opportunity to always um, engage with employees and engage with employers. And really, when we're doing those audits and trying to match employee, do the data analytics or talent analytics of employee expectation and what employers are doing, there's such a misalignment that comes consistently from training and development. A person who is working in customer service, right, is executing on that role. Um, Communication is not their problem. Um, but they don't have the tools to or the frameworks that they need to understand how to manage customers that come with unrealistic demands, right? And so because they don't have that framework, right, of how to engage that, performance is dipping. Performance is dipping. Everybody can only see the sheets that, oh, performance is dipping, oh, but the general consensus is that is a communication problem. Now, management approves, say, some Udemy training and development courses on communication. So everybody in customer experience is supposed to go for communication training. But in reality, the customer experience talents that are there are good communicators, but the company has not just highlighted a process for how to navigate or framework or how to develop how to handle queries that are realistic for the company policy. And they have been highlighting it, but nobody's listening to them. So now company has probably spent maybe $5,000 to invest in those trainings and is expecting change. By next performance review, the issues are still there. Or is it a case of sales or a sales team where I mean, and these are real scenarios that I'm painting because these are things that we had to deal with in team audits, is that we have in a sales team, you have different archetypes of people working there. Now the organization, they have laid down processes, they have laid down rules, they have all of those interesting stuff, right? Now, but the reality is that for the sales team, you have people who who are beginners. They've never had to handle sales before. You have people who are experienced. You have people who are just doing in the sales team because they just want to get their base salary, right? Now, the sales team, their performance is maybe average. The company's goal is to double sales target, right? And then we do the audit and of what it would take for an ideal person or ideal talent to work within the sales team. And then we find out that about the only percentage that can actually execute on the new performance metrics about 20%. The remaining 65% needs to be optimized. But in that 65%, about 40% need to be exited out of the sales team completely. Now, before the organization got into doing that audit, they had spent money and resources training and training and training, right? But mismatch was going on because first, in the first place, they're administering the wrong treatment to the situation. And so they cannot get productive results at the end of the day. Another one where roles to fit expectation happens. And I like to say this because it always happens and I always laugh. And I'm like, never assume that the talent that you hire today is the same talent that is working with you 3 months after, or is the same talent with the same mindset, with the same understanding that is working with you 6 months after. And this thing happened real life. We did an audit once. I remember telling the head of HOD, I said, this particular talent that you're banking on to drive your Q3 objective is going to resign. And she's like, no, Omozino, why she's going to resign? Oh, sorry, it was a guy. Why is he going to resign? He's not going to resign, no. Da, 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 da. I said, this person is going to resign. And this is why, from the data, we're seeing that this person has significantly outgrown this role. This person has outgrown this role. Their mind is not here. They're going to resign. Well, it's one thing to give recommendations, one thing to show the data, show recommendations, another thing for someone to listen, right? True to it, in 2 weeks after we gave that report, that person resigned. We did not have a direct we didn't talk to the talent directly. So in this case, I don't even know who that person is, right? The HOD came back and said, truly, this person has resigned. This person has resigned. So at every point in time, the thing with human capital is that people are shifting. It's not like assets, not like money. Even the money markets, right, always fluctuates. But with human, it's just so complicated that they can shift. And when their motivation and your motivation in a business is not aligning anymore, expect that talent is going to churn. And you have to be prepared for that churn. Let's continue. So remember I said that when it comes to hiring, when it comes to talent mismatch, one of the biggest areas is that hiring talent, right? You are looking at their skills, you're looking at their technical ability, but we've seen consistently over time that what really drives people to perform is all the things that are underneath that we do not see. So they're showing you their CV, but you don't know their work ethic. You can't quantify their work ethic aside what they tell you during the interview. They could practice, they could speak Queen's English, and they could speak fluent, right? It doesn't tell you their level of curiosity. It doesn't tell you their ability to be adaptable or their level of self-awareness. And when it comes, especially if you're a small business or you're a startup or you're a growing business, which I want to believe, a lot of us here are, or even if you're in an established organization that requires a lot of agility and innovation, what makes a team push through are all of these things that we don't see. We don't see them, but they make a huge difference. They make a huge difference in how the output of work happens. But when you are hiring, all we're looking at, do they have technical skill, pedigree, experience, IQ? And these things are important, don't get me wrong. They are important. But in hiring today, in these times and in this context today, we have to have an inclusive and a holistic approach at looking at the people that want to join our organization and also want to join our teams. Because when it comes to human behavior, it's people are icebergs. People are icebergs, rather, right? There's what we see, right? There's how they present themselves, and there's all the things that are going on underneath. And these are the things, when it comes to making decisions, it's all of these things that will affect how the person thinks, how the person makes decisions, how the person works under pressure, how the person handle hard conversations, how the person navigates stakeholder management. All of these things, right, are so important. All right. Like I was saying, qualitative inputs drive the quantitative outputs. In the midst of uncertainty, you know that the person has good ability to code JavaScript doesn't mean that he has the creative capacity, to solve some problems. So consistently, when we're training and developing, when we're optimizing our people, we must pay attention to the qualitative attributes, right, that they have, and how we're going to help them optimize that. And so that's why culture, even as it is, goes beyond, is a lot of influence, is a lot of mentorship, is a lot of coaching. Because the qualitative input, the qualitative thinking of our people really does influence their quantitative outputs. And that's very important. Now, when it comes to qualitative inputs and what that looks like, right? Over time, we've been able to see that consistently, these 5 dimensions play a huge role in that regard. So, personality, right? And so when people think about personality, they think about, oh, introvert, extrovert. Yeah, yes. That's part of it. But when I say personality, right, what we've been able to see over the years, of or in doing research and development, and also like looking and inquiring on human behavior, especially in the context of workplace, is that personality in relation to how do they approach work task, personality in relation to how do they make decisions, personality in relation to how do they go about communication and interaction, personality in relation to how they manage um, problem solving. And so when you think about personality in these 4 dimensions, especially in the context for your organization, especially in the context of the role that you're hiring for your organization, you will think about it differently. So you'll not be thinking introvert, extrovert. Now you'll be thinking, does this person, how do I want them to think when it comes to making decisions? Do I want someone that is systematic or spontaneous? Do I want somebody that is independent in thinking or is socially inclined, socially influenced? Do I want somebody that is empathic or somebody that is extremely logical? Do I want somebody that is creative or somebody that is reasonable or, reasonable in judgment, right? So all of that mixed together then begins to determine what sort of talent archetype am I looking for. You're looking at abilities. So abilities goes beyond just uh nominal soft skills, right? How much critical thinking do I need? How much agility do I need this person to have for this role? How much, to what extent of leadership and management do I need this person to exhibit on this role? Um, do I need them to be technically curious? That means that I can wake them up one morning and say, you know what, guys, we need to learn this programming language, and everybody in this team needs to go and learn it. Would they be curious enough to go and take up that challenge and do it? These are the things that affect your work output. Because see, when you're running a business or you're working in a team and you're working even in a world that is fast changing, a lot of things will need to change. So you want to be able to know, okay, my people have these abilities that if we need to shift tomorrow, everybody will shift. It will not be such a difficult thing to, for the team to pivot when they need to pivot, right? Now, if you as a leader, you're already asking that, oh, you will need to pivot, you will need to do a lot of shifts, and then the team that you have is very linear and is very straight jackets. What that would mean is that that's the beginning of mismatch for you, because when you now require them to be a certain way or to pivot in a certain way, they will refuse. There will be resistance. And when there's resistance, there's very little productivity you can get. What will then start to happen is what we describe in this place. So you're either spending time to hammer them into shape, which you would spend time, resources, trainings, all of those things, or you're hammering and you're discarding, hammering and you're discarding. You don't have time for that. When do you now have time to do the fun stuff, which is actually sitting down, creating, going to markets, talking to your customers, delivering, on those KPIs and outcomes that matter, right? So this is so critical. I hope we're getting value from what I'm saying. Fantastic. So same thing with motivation. This thing, I'm so big on motivation, right? It's such a subtle thing that people don't pay attention to, but it defines so much. Say, for example, we have an employer with a role that says, um, oh, he wants people that are driven. by mastery, driven by autonomy, and driven by dedication to a cause. Now, a talent walks in on a role and is taken through the precision assessment to determine what's his level of fit for that role. This talent is highly skilled, but his motivation, he's looking for better salary. He's looking for better salary, which is more like stability. That point that he's looking for stability. He's looking for teamwork, and he's looking for recognition, right? So obviously, mentally, in his mind, what he wants to make out of his career now, I want to flex, I want to make enough money, and I also want to, you know, have some prestige around my career. Now, you as the employer, if that employer then brings in this person with this mindset into his own ecosystem that requires people to be autonomous, to be, obsessed with mastery, and I think to be dedicated, no matter the technicality of his skill, because his mind is in a different context, he cannot deliver the value that you're looking for. You are, in fact, you're even better off hiring someone that is lesser skilled with the right motivation, because they are highly motivated. They are highly motivated to deliver on that outcome because that's where their mind is, versus the person that is highly skilled with the wrong motivation. And we've seen it play out so many times. So many times. Maybe for the highly skilled person with the wrong motivation, max productivity that you probably be able to get from them is maybe 2 months or 3 months of good work, right? But at certain points when you need some stuff, there will be clashes, there will be resistance, and you don't need that. And you don't need that. So these are the things that really do influence and impact productivity that we are not aware of. Work style is another one. I mean, I mean, work style, the people approach work differently. And I'll just give a quick example around this. Referring back to the sales example. So one of the things that we measured was their work style as a team, and we found out that they had a bunch of the team members had a work style where of visualizers, which we coined it as. And visualizers are type that are good with strategy, ideation. And for sales, you're not doing strategy and ideation, I'm giving you target, they're giving you process. You have to run with it. So imagine if 70% of your sales team are strategic and ideators. Who's going to do the job? Who's going to execute? Right? And that was one part of the challenge they were having. They had more ideators than executors. So there's no way about 25% or 20% of the team members who are actually meeting up the KPIs were doing the work of a 50-man team. So a 10 people are doing the work of a 50-man team. And these are the realities that the organization we had to paint. See, this is the reality of your team. Don't say you have a team. You don't have a team. You need to, something isn't added up here. And there's also behavioral archetype, and how that plays out in the workplace. So these are the things that when you're hiring, you need to think about. These are the things that affect people's actual productivity, right? And through this for years, we've also tested this in-house. For myself, I use it a lot to hire. Um, Talent assessment, and I also believe that we will also have doing a collaboration with Bizedgeapp as well in that regard to make this available to SMEs and startups as well. um, but it just makes life easy. Right now, if you don't show me your CV, I don't really look at it, because by the time we go through all this dimension and we go through your technical assessment, we can almost tell if you would, how long you will stay with us, how good enough you are to work within our own system, how long you will spend with us. It all just makes life easy, right? Um, Another thing that I want, another dimension that I also want us to consider, right, is, and we've talked about it already, when we look at all of those, the initial 5 dimensions, right? and then look at how this even plays out within our teams, you will then find out that you have talent that are high potential and active. So find out that you have some talents with you that are high potential, they get the work done, they are highly motivated, and they are present. You will find out the ones that are very interesting, you find out that are high potential dormants. They can do the work, they can exceed KPIs, but they don't really care. They don't care enough, right? You have the guys that are average potential active. So what usually happens in a lot of organizations is that they have a few high potential active and a few average potential active. So the average potential doesn't have all it takes. It's trainable, right? They're open to training, they're open to a lot of, but at least they care about the organization, they care about the job, and they're willing to get it. So you imagine that you have a full organization, 80-man team, or even a 10-man team, and you have just maybe two people, one that is high potential active, one that is average potential active. They're the only ones that can carry the weight of the job, and you have to deliver on some very heavy objectives. You have a suboptimal team versus if you had a large chunk who are high potential active, average potential active. You also have cases where you have average potential dormant. They are there, they have the potential to be trained, to get better, but they also do not care about the organization. And then you have low potential active. They are there, they don't really, they might not be as sound as say the high potential guys, right? It will take a lot to train them, but they care enough about the organization, they're willing to make it work. And then you have low potential dormants, which are guys you should not even have in within your team at all. But you would not even know if you don't even assess, right? If you don't even assess from the beginning, if you don't assess at intervals, if you don't quantify, you know, talent in an objective manner. And so really the bane of what we're talking about when it comes to talent mismatch and even preventing it is that you must have a system within your organization that helps you assess, that helps you quantify, and you don't just leave it to chance. At every point in time within your organization, you're looking at every quarter, you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, what do we really need, right? And do our people have what it takes to get there, to get us there, right? If they don't have what it takes, what are the gaps objectively? And that's the beauty of using talent assessment. What are the gaps that we need to close? So you can be that in your customer service experience team, you have people with different skill gaps, right? That cannot be addressed, as with one training. So you need maybe a different shade of training and then and development process. It could be that, oh, your guys, they don't even need training, they just better compensation and benefit structure. And that would get them, you see their motivation. Everybody in this customer experience team is motivated by cash. Money is their motivation. You will redesign your workflow to provide incentives that drive that, because now you understand the human behavior that would most likely drive the performance that you're looking for. And then that makes it easy. When you're hiring, you know exactly for this department, this is the kind of people that we need here. And then you don't just go and use random internet. Oh, yes, you can use that because it's a template system, but you need to talent archetype across these dimensions. How do you even when you're talking to the talent, how do you know who is for you? How do you know who is best to hire? What data are you? Buffett said something, I think it's a culture very slow to hire. They take their time because asset class. And I always say this, and it's a benefit of a doubt. It is true. People are an asset class, and people, when you work with the right people, it is a recurring, you know, um, generation generational see people as an asset class. It just changes things for you. That you're working and you're calculating as a talent investor. And when you're thinking about investment, you don't invest, you make sound investment decisions. Decisions of investment don't just happen, right? There's objective data. You're not doing trial and error, even though you're taking risk. You're making calculated risk, right? And so what data helps you to do is make the right bet and also make you minimize your risk of errors. Um, so in order to solve the problem of talent mismatch, or to minimize it, things that we need to start thinking about or reconsidering, right, is we need to think about, pardon me, we need to start introducing assessments, objective assessments. We need to start to quantify performance. Because the truth is, even if you set KPIs and they deliver on those KPIs, the fact that you're going to set a new set of KPIs doesn't mean that your team can hit that new benchmark. You need to be sure that the people that you're sending there, right, can they have the capacity to do that? And if they don't have the capacity, what are the gaps and how do we begin to close those gaps? Um, another thing about Another thing that, in solving talent mismatch, we have to start to rethink is rethinking performance management. So I know that it's proverbial every month or at the end of the quarter, there's performance appraisals and all of those things. But what if we thought about it differently? What if we thought about it differently? As people are executing, they are flagging down what they have issues with. You are intervening instantly, and you're they are self-optimizing in a loop. So is you're not waiting till the end of a quarter to evaluate encompass, and then maybe a manager is just ticking, or you as a manager are just ticking, okay, remember the day that that person annoyed you, and then no. Performance management has to be objective in such a way that at every point in time, when somebody's executing on those KPIs, right, and those tasks, when they hit a you're aware. When they hit a issue, when you are able to see when they're executing and it helps you identify, oh, this is the skill gap that this person has. We need to intervene quickly. Can this person be optimized in this area? It is agile in such a way that it's a beautiful loop, and then you can easily spot what is wrong and intervene quickly. Another thing that we need to rethink if we're thinking about talent mismatch, we want to solve a problem well within our organization or prevent it significantly within our organization, is that we need to rethink culture. We need to rethink people and culture, right? We need to rethink people and culture. See, the if you your employees or the people that work with you, right, they play a critical role. They play a critical role in driving the organization's objective. They play a critical role. We need to rethink culture. It's so important. And in rethinking culture, I usually said that, I mean, I'm in the middle of something now that is just so interesting, right? And as I'm listening, I have a background in behavioral science as well. So half the time I'm always listening. I spend more time listening than actually talking. Um, and then there's your employees' approach to solving the problem. There's your approach in thinking about how the problem should be solved. And then you realize that if you don't pay much attention, there's a misalignment in how it's going to be executed on. And then if the culture is such that, say, the employee doesn't feel like they're heard, all you will just be hearing, murmurings. And nobody ever, was come up and say, but objectively, I want to argue with you that this doesn't make sense, right? And so there's something we do, there's something we do at Udemy. And when we sit down together and want to deliberate on tough matters, right? I'm so grateful that over time we've been able to find people that take mental ownership. I'm so big on mental ownership. It's so important because you cannot think about everything by yourself as the leader. You can't navigate all the problems of building an organization by yourself. And so um I'll say, okay, bring your strong argument now. Let's bring our strong argument. And sometimes when I'm flawed, my argument is flawed, I accept it. I'll be like, okay, your way makes sense. Another thing I also encourage is, okay, set your numbers, right? Tell me what you can achieve. Even if it would slow us down a bit, I want you to build the momentum to what you're driving towards. If in now executing on that KPI, I then see that your execution is not smoothing out, I would then call you and say, no, no, no. If you're saying that you set this number, that's set the number for you. Say no. Okay. You set this number, Abby. Okay, yes. How are you executing to achieve this number? If you are going about it this way, the process that you're thinking about it, you've not refined your thinking process. So let's work on your thinking. That can only happen, and they can openly come and say, you know what, this is what I'm thinking about this, right? I don't know if my thinking is the best way, but what do you think, Oz? And I'm like, okay, let's think about it objectively. Does this process make sense? Is this the best way? Is this the best way we can use to achieve this thing? And then having that culture where it's open, they're open enough to argue with you and you're not annoyed. And it's not personal, right? Makes a lot of difference. So in resolving talent mismatch, because there are some talents that you will bring into your organization that where they don't see, they might be high performers, but when they don't see that there's that liberty to do that, they're just like, "Oh, okay, so we move, or we will move soon, depending, or you find out that they now join the immediate culture and they're now able to like shift and turn things. So these are things that we need to think about if we want to reduce talent mismatch within our organizations. Okay. Um, so yes, I've spent about close to an hour speaking. Actually, less people speak. One of the things I would appreciate is we give like real case scenarios that happen within our organizations or the teams that we're leading or the teams that we're trying to work in right now, and let's talk about it. As to the best of my ability, I'll be able to give as much intervention that we can on this call. So thank you, BZEdge, for this opportunity to share. Yeah, so the
Thank you
floor is
very
open,
much.
guys.
Thank you very much,
Fantastic.
Omozino. That was fantastic. Extemporaneous delivery from you. And of course, we can just call this a mini masterclass. Yeah, kind of. It's just that we are not in the, how will I put it? It's a masterclass. It's a masterclass. And thank you so much for coming on board to discuss this with us. So please let's show some appreciation in the chat box, clap of hands,
Thank you for having me as well.
some energy there. Thank you so much. You've really given us value this morning. So we'll be moving straight to Q&A. If we have question and answers, please let us put our questions in the chat box. As she said, case scenario, something's happening in your office. You can bring it here.
Yes, so share
So,
it now.
so this is free consultation. Like something's happening.
Free or free. I don't,
This free
free.
consultation after today, you might have to pay for it. Then during your conversation, I was really following, and it was kind of heavy on the employer side. Thank you very much, Gloria. We see the love there. Moses, thank you so much. So it was really kind of heavy, pretty heavy on the employer side. Now, I have some questions of my own, but of course, before we start having questions rolling, I just want to quickly push mine in. Now, from the employee angle, we have the pre-hiring, we have the hiring, and then we have the post-hiring process for someone coming in. How can one know that, okay, fine, as an employee, there's talent mismatch? Like, I'm a square peg in a round hole. So how does an employee notice this? And how can an employee address this with himself or herself, and then with the employer or with the organization?
Oh, oh my. You took me to the end. I mean, so I started a conversation because I want to believe like a large chunk of us here are leaders, are leading teams, or as I understand the audience to be.
That's great.
Now
Yeah.
that's a very interesting question because at Udemy we've also seen employees say, I feel like this is like it's my job isn't like the word is my job isn't really giving. Like I feel like it's not giving.
Hmm.
And I'm trying, but it feels like I don't fit here or I don't fit in this role anymore. It's still the same process, right? First you need to the moment you feel like there's a disconnect between what I'm doing and the responsibilities that are assigned to me, first of all need to think through and say, okay, need to assess where am I now? Where am I in my career trajectory right now? And objectively look at it and say, okay, these are the abilities that I'm exceptional at right now. Which of these abilities align to this role that I'm working in? Okay, so this role, I'm a sales rep, so it needs eloquence. I think my eloquence right now is about like 60%. So I still need to get better at eloquence, but eloquence is there. Okay, it requires persuasion. Okay, my persuasion is at a 0% or a 5%. So that means that I'm probably having issues because my persuasion is really low. Okay, then we look at the another dimension is what's my what's my role fit, right? So there are different standard like um organizational functions, right? You have products, you have human capital, you have sales and operations, you have those who are working strategy on more like management and entrepreneurship. So you have talents who are entrepreneurial within your role, within an organization, right? And they function well in that capacity. You have guys who are research and market focused. You have guys who are good at customer development and all of those things. So then looking at that, unfortunately, I wish I could share a document so that we could see how those insights really just align and give objectivity. I'm going to spoil out one in a few, but let me just explain. So, first thing that talent needs to do as an employee, you first of all need to objectively assess yourself, right? And say, where am I right now in my career trajectory? Where do I fit in terms of role archetype, right? Do I really fit more into strategy and innovation and I'm doing stuff in customer experience? Or or do I really fit more into products than I'm doing things in like finance, right? And once you've identified that loophole, you then start to ask yourself, okay, do I want to stay put? How long can I really stay put in this role? Or how do I start to prepare for that pathway that I'm seeing potential in? And it will shock you that even within that organization, you can begin to play that role, right? You can be in customer experience and you are applying your strategic and innovative mindedness or management and entrepreneurial mindedness to optimize the processes in that function that is giving a peculiar result. And after a while, the management gets aware, right? Um, it could be that you're in growth, but you're more of a entrepreneurial person. And then in growth, you're having issues. Maybe we're not getting leads, we're not getting gigs, we're not, hitting our targets. And then you bring a distinct angle to that. And then you're sort of just job shaping and shaping your role within that organization to fit what would make you most happy. And really, that's how you job design. That's how you job redesign. Because if you're waiting for that perfect fit to happen, people will not see the potential that you have until you start to demonstrate that potential. And before you start to demonstrate that potential, you must even know where exactly you are and what are the right potential or opportunities for you to align yourself to. And that's what really would make a difference. Yes, I hope that helped to an extent.
Big time. That really helped. Yes, thank you very much for
Fantastic,
answering that question.
fantastic.
So I post that because yeah, as employer or maybe managing a team, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned something like in the you might have entrepreneurial employees, and of course they know they can have that feeling that I think I no longer fit in, or I think I need to cross carpet, in my career. Thank you very much for giving us insight on that. So we have a question from Moses. And his question is this: how can one really get stakeholder buy-in in terms of talent acquisition? The background of this question is that he has a case where senior managers apply a hands-off approach when it comes to recruitment. But
No,
when there
that's
is talent
a
mismatch,
good
they look at
question.
they look at our dear Moses. And this is a lot. But recruitment is planned from acquisition down to when you give the offer. So how can we get or guard the tops, to buy in into our plan or plan of the talent acquisition
Mm,
that one has on ground?
mm. That's a real question, right? Because I always say that hiring is a team sport, right? But what happens is that HR is always experiencing the bottom barrel of this of this situation. Because
Mm.
what happens is that when there is a requisition, yeah, everybody just say, HR, we want JavaScript something something. Yeah. HR, we want product person. Yeah. HR, and the HR doesn't know the HR is in a department, right? Doesn't fully know what's going on in your department, doesn't fully know how what's the team style, right? And you mentioning this now is just making me like so super excited around um a solution that we're trying to create, which I had mentioned earlier, um called precision. And so precision is such that it would tackle some of these issues. So we know that is established, right? That managers don't like to get hired. Managers don't like to hire. Managers don't like to sit in interviews. Managers don't like to do shit, to be honest. We just want to come up, do what we want to do, and move on. So the first thing that you need to do objectively, while we're still trying to um is find a way to get their requirements right in a holistic way. And I believe that Precision is in manual beta. Is going to be in public and live soon. I think by the end of quarter one or early quarter two. And so everyone here will be able to have access to it. So just follow Udemy or follow Bizedgeapp, and you get on the team as regards that.
Yeah, of course.
So as I was saying, find a way to quantify what their expectations are. And it's not just saying, oh, give me a job description. You have to go beyond that. You have to ask them, like, if requisition form that is very simple but gives a sense of what that talent would be doing, what that manager expects from that talent within that team, what the team style is for that particular unit. So if you give that manager, say you do a simple Google form, right? And then you give them, okay, name, role, do you want somebody that is audacious? Do you want somebody that is, just to give you a sense of the kind of talent that you are looking for, right? And that also helps you when you have shortlisted talents and you have given it to them, right? You can also put an interview ranking system that sort of helps them synthesize objectively based on those initial qualities that they've mentioned, right? Objectively synthesize if this candidate is it for them. So when there are issues, you now refer back to their uncle or auntie. Please, you people made this decision. You made this decision. So what changed? And because it happens, you hire a talent wants to go, talent isn't working up. And I remember we started this conversation, I mentioned that hiring is difficult now, not because people don't necessarily have the technical skill, but because of the intangible elements that really drive performance when they are either non-existent or they are very minimal, right? It would affect quantitative outputs. It will affect quantitative outputs. So that helps. So to really help put that into perspective is a solution. I'll just talk about it now. It's called Precision. So Precision is a talent assessment tool that blends behavioral science and a bit of behavioral science and artificial intelligence to help you simulate what job expectations are, what the job expectations are from behavioral all the way to technical, right? And then it simulates an assessment that you can administer to candidates. Now, this candidate takes that assessment and you're able to see in an objective way, right, with your own predefined precision score, if they're a good fit for your team. And you have all the data and the insight to back your decision. So I'm going to just share an example of what that looks like so we can see. Um, a moment, please.
That's great.
Fantastic. So, I mean, this has been in use, but on a manual, we have a manual beta. So, the thing with building like technology solutions that have AI or machine learning is that you have to have a system that helps you aggregate data upfront. And we've been doing it manually for a while, just to really even strengthen our data collection and the user experience. But it works. Like I use it for myself. It works like fire. I'm not even joking. Every time I ignore a precision assessment verdict, we always burn our hands. Like it's always painful because you've spent time, you spent resources, and then you then have to start the process again.
Okay, we lost your audio. Please unmute. Yeah, great. We can hear
Hello?
you now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So this is what a result looks like, right? So precision, you tell your line managers, you tell your team managers to just fill an expectation form. So the expectation form has been synthesized in such a way that it helps the manager synthesize everything from what are the best motivations, what is the criteria, every single element, and you don't need to stress. So this was for a product role. So the employer has highlighted everything they wanted from basic expectation to technical competency areas that they wanted the candidate particularly be good at, um, to soft competency areas that they wanted the candidates to be great at as well, um, to personality traits that were important. So you see how precision does the work for you, to motivation, right? So everywhere you see where there's a conflict, you see where there's the alignment, you see their scoring, you see how that influences all the way to workplace qualities, all the way to workplace qualities. So it just makes the whole process, makes the entire process um, seamless. And I think this candidate scored about a 74% match. I'm trying to um, keep their name private. I'm going to try, and then you have other candidates that scored, average like 51. So you sort of like just see who's a good enough fit. You have one that had like 46. He had some elements, but not sufficient for him to be the most person to hire for that role, you know. And so this just makes your decision making easier. I think the reason why managers run away from the recruitment process is because they feel like it's a job. So imagine that you had this to just synthesize their requirements quickly. What do you need? What, objectively, it helps you make better decisions. So when you're assessing the candidates and you're getting data, you are getting the top 5 or top 3 that really, really speak to sync with what the manager of that team would align with most, versus you're interviewing 50 people or 60 people, and then they hire somebody because it feels like they have the right vibe, and then they get into your system and you're like, wahala, what did I just do? What did I bring within the system? And they're complaining to you, HR, you've done this, HR, So yeah, we're the leader. We want to be your best friends as leaders, and as managers or HR people. And I know this is a big pain for HR people, because I had to sit down with HR professionals to create this as well. So I believe we're going to have an integration with Bizedgeapp when the time is close by. I believe that strongly, and also make it available for as many startups, SME owners, HR managers, particularly, to get on board on this. It's premium stuff, guys. I'm not even lying to you. Like, it saves you a ton of work.
Great. Thank you so much, Omozino. We look forward to that relationship we'll be having. And Moses, from what she said, I picked something which is you're more or less bringing in stakeholders. Well, I say
To
indirectly,
be
yes, if you're not hitting them, upfront and personal. So, and
Mhm.
if you feel I don't have that time, I won't be with you all through the step. But we just need what you want to know what you need, like punching your
Mhm.
parameters. Then it just makes it easier. This is great innovation from Udemy, and we're looking forward to when this product really goes live. And of course, we are big on
Yay.
helping SMEs and large corporations just to get the job done right. And less stress.
That's that's all we want to do. We just want to come to work and get work done. No much work, no much talk, talk,
Um,
talk, talk. Let's just get good work done. Yeah.
Exactly. We've really stretched our time today, and we would love to take more questions. But if you do have, of course, you can drop them. You can send them to our email at hello@bizedgeapp.com, or you can share them with Omozino. So Omozino, what email are we dropping?
Yeah, so I'm dropping all our details. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Udemy, on Twitter at Ask Udemy as well. For me personally, my full name is Omozino Eguh. You can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
Um, if you want to chat directly with me, I don't mind. I'll
Great,
just drop my
fantastic.
WhatsApp number. You can send me WhatsApp message. That's fine. We also have a community where we just rant and chat and sort of bant around people management issues. It's quite hilarious. I think a few members of BZ are also there. Sometimes we deliberate on very interesting topics around ethics, around workplace dynamics, around how to how to even respond to some very ridiculous things that happen within your team, right? I also dropped the link there as well if anyone wants to join. Well, just have fun. We're here to serve you.
Thank you very much.